Good morning. This is Charlie Zeese from Only PVC Pyramids. I'm really happy today to be doing my very first interview in what I hope will be a series of fascinating subjects and people to talk to about topics related to pyramids. Michael is located actually in Australia. It's 9 a.m. where I am, but it's 11 p.m. for Michael, and through the miracle of modern technology, we're able to hook up today. We have a really fascinating topic for discussion today. Michael has been doing some experimentations with the 76.345 degree pyramid geometry and has developed a technique for making Ormus or monoatomic gold through the use of these pyramids. And that's what we're going to be talking to Michael about today. Michael, good evening, good morning.
Thank you, Charlie. Good evening for me. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm very, very happy to be talking to you. So thank you.
Thanks. For those who have not heard about you before, and I'm sure that that's a lot of the people in the audience, why don't you give the audience a little bit of information about your background and just a general introduction to how you got interested in this process of making Ormus.
Yeah, sure. Without going into too much detail, I'm sure I could. Really, this all started with exploring kind of alternative topics, health and spirituality, I guess, as a young teenager. Health was a really big interest of mine, and I was always looking for something to give me some kind of edge or improve my life in some way. And somehow I stumbled upon Ormus through that interest and stumbled upon monoatomic gold. So yeah, from there I kind of did a lot of research, did a lot of experimentation, and really found that the stuff that was being sold online didn't really fit the bill for what I was looking for. And in my exploration, I stumbled upon a interesting individual on a forum who gave me a few hints, I guess you could say, at what was really going on with Ormus or monoatomic gold. For people that don't know what Ormus is, it's supposedly an exotic state of matter that can be formed through chemical processes from platinum group metals. So it's a kind of high energy state of matter that may or may not exist according to science. And I guess not to ramble too much, that's really how I got into it.
And how did you come upon, when you were talking about the other information about the other forms of Ormus and how to produce them, you might tell people exactly what's involved with the vast majority of those. I've became familiar with Ormus through a group called the Kesh Foundation, and they teach their members ways of making the Ormus with rather caustic chemicals and so forth. So you might just kind of go through the other processes that are involved and why you decided that that probably wasn't the best solution.
Sure, absolutely. So just to give a bit of an overview of I guess, what Ormus is, to attempt to go over it again. Really, supposedly what's happening is these metals, these elements, platinum, gold, iridium, rhodium, etc., are being put into a high energy state. That's what people think is going on. And to do that, the bonds, the metallic bonds between the elements are being broken down. So it's being converted to a single atom form. And the way the vast majority of people are doing that is through the use of really caustic chemicals. They're basically taking things like seawater, which they believe has a high concentration of this material, or pure gold, and they're putting it through some pretty intense chemical processes. So the main stuff that's used is lye, sodium hydroxide, which is extremely caustic.
Right.
And I guess it does break down these bonds to create monoatomic elements. So that's the main process that people use. You can also use what's called a magnetic trap. So there's this idea that this exotic matter, these elements, are repelled by magnetic fields. So there's this kind of idea that if you expose water to a strong magnet, you can separate out these high energy particles from the rest of the water. So that's another way. Magnetic trap water, you can find a lot of information on that online. I think some people are even using olive oil, so avoiding the kind of harsh chemicals, olive oil to separate this material from different foods and different sources. So yeah, the caustic method is the main one. I think people are getting seawater and gold and other things down to up to a pH of 11 or more, and that's the main way of producing it. And I mean, people are reporting all sorts of increases in plant growth, improvements in health, all sorts of weird and strange effects on themselves, on their mind and body, and that's kind of the main appeal. This all came about from a guy named David Hudson. Do you know anything about David Hudson, Charlie?
Well, I do. I know that he owned a lot of land in the American Southwest and was able to actually, go through some extensive testing, which, as I understand it, maybe was even some of this was suppressed. You certainly know more than I, but I know that he's given a number of lectures on this topic, and it's a topic of great interest to me.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I've really done my due diligence in terms of Ormus and this research. But just to kind of reach back in time a little bit, from David's research, he put together something like $2 million to invest in research into this material that he'd found through his gold mining ventures. But I don't think any of the Ormus that's been produced with caustic chemicals has exhibited the same properties that David Hudson was reporting with his Ormus. I could be wrong. I'm not really sure what happened. He never followed through on his final experiments or research or whatever it was he was doing. But from what I understand, the stuff that you can buy online doesn't have the same properties as his Ormus did.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm starting to remember now. I believe that in some of the experiments that Hudson had performed, that in certain experimental conditions, the monoatomic gold would either disappear or float in the air. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. He was calling it fly ash or linking it to some historical reference of fly ash where it would fly away from your fingertips when you tried to touch it. Yeah, I think he reported changes in weight, it disappearing, like you said.
Yeah.
From as far as I'm aware, the stuff people are producing these days does not really do that. And I do have first-hand experience with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to bring all of this back to pyramids, you mentioned that you had gotten some hints, so to speak, from some sources, and you might tell people kind of what those hints entailed and how you got started on the path of using pyramids to help you in this process.
Sure. So just to kind of give an overview, I guess, I believe I found a method that uses no chemicals at all to produce Ormus out of pure gold. But really, what happened for me was I was on a forum called Energetic Forums. I believe that's what it is. It's been a long time. And I found a user on there who was cautioning people against taking the typically produced Ormus, the Ormus that's made with sodium hydroxide. And he seemed to know a little bit more than he should on the topic, and he gave out his email address. So I decided to get in touch with him. You can probably find his posts actually on the forum to this day. His name on the forum is Adam Ant. So if anyone wants to go and look. So I was in touch with Adam Ant, or I think his name was actually Brian, for a little while, and he was quite cryptic about things. He felt that he had some information that he wanted to share but couldn't. He explained to me that he'd signed an NDA and he was a part of a group of about 500 people that had conducted their own kind of research and experimentation on these materials. So he gave me a bunch of riddles, and this was his kind of way of giving me some crumbs, I guess. Not keeping me fully in the dark. But he was pretty adamant that he couldn't really tell me what was going on. Some of the things that he told me were that any element could become superconductive. So Ormus is said to be a superconductor at room temperature, which is a pretty big deal. You probably know more about that than me, Charlie. And he told me that it wasn't just the platinum group elements like gold, platinum, rhodium, iridium, palladium, etc., that could be put into a high energy superconductive state. He said that all elements could become superconductive. He also said that the kind of atomic state of all the matter on Earth used to be much higher in its energetic potential. I don't really know how else to put that. He basically said in his riddles that, saber-toothed tigers have become house cats, and that woolly mammoths have become common elephants. He was basically saying that everything on Earth had kind of devolved, and he referred to spin a lot. So he was saying, everything's kind of slowed down in its spin, and we need to speed it up. It was really vague and cryptic. One of the main points was that he said that true superconductors, which he didn't believe the Ormus sold on the internet was, the true superconductive monoatomic elements, or elements in general, were produced under normal circumstances. So under normal gravitational conditions, normal electrical conditions, no extreme heat. I wish I had the emails so I could go through them. I've actually lost the email address. But yeah, that was the big one that stuck for me, that whatever his secretive group was doing to produce these materials, they were doing it under pretty much normal conditions. There wasn't any craziness or going on to produce what they were producing. He also told me that the materials that they used in this group were all naturally occurring, and that was very important. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can remember of it. And somehow from those emails, from those conversations, I got the idea that he was talking about a pyramid. He didn't mention pyramids once throughout the conversation, but when I actually told him that that's what I thought he was referring to, he gave me a pretty big warning on the topic and stopped talking to me. So I took that as a sign, that I was on.
That you were on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to give the viewers a little bit of background. Michael contacted me about a month ago when he first put up a video that we're going to be showing you here in a few minutes. But in that conversation, he was really excited to tell me that he had based the pyramid structure on two key components. One of which was the research that I've done. But before he ever got to that, Michael, you had found a hieroglyph from ancient Egypt that I am now fascinated with because of my research into the Russian geometry pyramids and their relationship to the geometry of the Giza pyramid. And so I don't know if this is a good segue or not, but if you would, get into that topic. And if you can, we're learning how to use share screen here, so we hope we don't mess this up too much. But maybe you can show people a picture of that hieroglyph and give us a little background on how you found that.
Absolutely. So hopefully you can see it here. Let's just see. This is the hieroglyph. If you can see my mouse on the screen, this kind of the Ankh is the hieroglyph that Charlie was talking about. In my kind of exploration of ideas of ways to produce Ormus, this guy, Brian, who I was speaking to via email, kind of was telling me that the chemical methods were not the way to do it. So as I was exploring my ideas about Ormus and alternative methods, I looked up the hieroglyphs that were associated with white powder gold. So Ormus, monoatomic gold, goes right back to Egypt. They talk a lot about it. There's lots of legends about it, but yeah, it pretty much dates back to Egypt. So I looked up hieroglyphs that were associated with white powder gold, and I found this pyramid popping up quite a lot. And that really, I guess, affirmed to me that I was onto something with my idea. So what I did was I attempted to measure that pyramid using a program online to measure the angles of it. And I originally thought that the angles of the pyramid were 72 degrees, just the normal kind of phi ratio. What most people in the West thought was the Russian pyramid geometry. So yeah, I was pretty convinced that had something to do with it. And yeah, the pyramid, the hieroglyph shows up in a few places. The one that's on screen is from Karnak's, I believe.
Yes.
And it actually reads "life given, Ra like forever." So it's often found next to the Ankh, which of course life, immortality. So there's some association there, that's for sure. And yeah. I found it really interesting, and going back and actually measuring the angles, I found that it isn't a 72-degree pyramid. It's a hair off 76.345 degrees. So I found that really interesting. Of course, the camera angle probably affects the accuracy of that measurement, but it's pretty close.
Would you mind telling the viewers again the name of that program that you used to figure the angle? Because I just did this with my ruler, and that's pretty crude.
Oh yeah,
I got about 70, a little north of 76 degrees. So you're right; it's not 72. It's closer. It's right on. It seems to be spot on with the research that I've been putting together.
Yeah, I mean, when I came across your video, Charlie, and I went back and measured it, I was pretty stunned. So the program I used was MB Ruler, sorry. So it's just a free online desktop ruler. I'm just downloading it here, and I'll get it up. I'll just see if I can zoom in on this.
Or you think you might be able to do a calculation on the screen here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just get it up, and we can do that. So yeah, I it took me a while to understand this hieroglyph. Sorry, I wasn't really sure if it was what it was showing. Originally, I thought what was happening was, sorry, I've gone off on a little tangent. My apologies.
Okay.
So originally what I thought was happening, what the hieroglyph was showing, was that gold was placed in the center of it, and the gold was accumulating in this kind of pyramid shape at the bottom. Oftentimes white powder gold is shown as a kind of pyramid cake, I guess, and I thought that's what was being depicted here. So the Egyptians supposedly made cakes out of the white powder mixed with frankincense and myrrh, and they shaped them in kind of a pyramid shape. So that's originally what I thought was happening. I later kind of got the idea that maybe this whole structure was solid, and it was like a little negative pyramid that was cut out at the base of it. Alternatively, it could be a pyramid inside a pyramid. I really wasn't sure, but they were the kind of thoughts that I had going on at the time when I came across this.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Sure. Are you having any luck there?
Yeah, I think so. Let's have a look.
Okay. Well, I know that if while you're doing that, I would appreciate it if you would give us that translation of that hieroglyph again, because while you're working on that, I can talk about that in a biblical context.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe it translates roughly to the sound D-I, and it means given or to give.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And so but the translation of the entire hieroglyph that you saw there.
Sure. It's life or immortality given. Ra as in the sun god Ra, so radiant or Ra-like forever.
Okay.
So life given, Ra-like forever.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know we were discussing this before we went online, but one of the interpretations of the Exodus story is that the manna, so to speak, that is mentioned in the Bible as being provided by God every day, came in the form of a white kind of powderish substance. Many people thought that the translation would be more, I think, bread, but it could, in fact, and I've heard this said that this could have actually been a form of Ormus or monoatomic gold. So, have you heard something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two possibilities. It's either white powder gold, or it could be ergot. I think some people believe it's the ergot fungus on rye, but that doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, they're supposedly in the desert starving, so if they had rye grain just laying around, I don't think it would be as significant. But yeah, no, I absolutely have always thought that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And I think in the Ormus community, people talk about that quite a lot.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this calculation, and
Yeah.
it's really, can you? You think you can
Yeah,
do it?
let's do it. I think
Okay.
I'm ready to go with it.
All right, fantastic.
Sorry, for context, I've been sick the last few days, so I'm not really my sharpest at the moment.
Well, you're doing great so far.
I appreciate it. All right, so hang on. Let's try and zoom this in really big. All right, there we go. Can you see that, Charlie?
I can. That's perfect.
All right, so on this tool, you can see the degrees up here. I think, yep, that's it. So 0 degrees is kind of flat, if that makes sense. So I'm going to align the corner to the corner of the pyramid, and then I'll take it up to the peak. So 76 is there. So you can see my cursor. Can you see the red line there, Charlie?
You know, I'm not sure I'm seeing what you're seeing, to be honest.
All right. Can you see the hieroglyph on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so there is a red line. It's really fine and faint, and I don't think I can do much about it.
Okay.
But right now it's reading 76.25. So I've got the compass or the desktop ruler lined up with the base corner of the pyramid.
Okay.
And I've taken the angle from that kind of bottom left-hand corner to the slope of the pyramid, the slope angle.
Right.
And it's come up, yeah, pretty much 76 exactly.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know if the other people, the viewers, are seeing it. I have a color vision issue as well. I never told you about, Michael. So
Sure, yeah.
I can't see it because of my color vision deficiency. But
Yep.
suffice it to say, this device is showing that this pyramid is definitely somewhere very, very close to the range of the 76.345 that I calculated using the geometry of the phi spiral. So I think this is a very, very significant find, and particularly now that we know the context of this hieroglyph, because it's telling us that this geometry could be the key to making these changes in the structure of gold. So take us from that point to finding my video, and then take us on to the real part of the program people are interested in, which is showing us your research that you've accomplished and the video that demonstrates the hypothesis that you're putting forth.
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to play the video that I uploaded on YouTube of kind of what I found in the background, and I'll talk about what's happened more recently. So just bear with me for 2 seconds here. Share. All right. So it took me a really long time to actually get this all going. So I wanted to test this. I wanted to make a pyramid of what I thought were the same dimensions of the hieroglyph, which at the time I thought was 72 degrees. And I wanted to test it, but I wasn't really sure how to make a pyramid like that. Like I said before, my apologies. Like I said before, I thought that there were three three possibilities in terms of the structure or the layout of that hieroglyph and that pyramid, three ways that you could do it. And I really wasn't sure which was correct. I also, like I said, didn't know how to construct it. So I came up with all sorts of plans. I ended up buying a 3D printer because I really couldn't wrap my head around how I was going to make the geometry so perfect. For whatever reason, I didn't think of making a geometric net, which is a really, really simple way to make a pyramid. So it's kind of like measuring out 4 triangles like a pizza and then folding them up to make a pyramid. So, I mean, if you get a cube and you unwind it, it kind of looks something like a hopscotch field. And you can kind of fold the edges up and make a cube out of it, right? So that's what I ended up doing. Just before I actually brought myself to try it out, I came across Charlie's video. I was using Google SketchUp to try and get the geometries right for the pyramid and the measurements right, and I still wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I was measuring the slope angle properly. I wasn't sure which face I was meant to be taking the measurement from of 72 degrees. And I just so happened to stumble upon Charlie's video. When I saw the geometries that Charlie was showing with the spheres and the phi ratio, I knew that it was correct, and I decided to go with Charlie's geometries, which, if anyone doesn't know, is instead of just taking the base length and the height and getting the phi ratio between the two. So if the height is 1.618, the base is 1. Is that correct, Charlie?
Well, actually, that's for the Nubian, the 72 or 72.8.
Sure. Yeah. So instead of taking the Nubian measurements, I think you've taken spheres and you've
That's right. That's right. And so, to review, I've taken a series of spheres. For illustration purposes, we'll assume that the bottom sphere has a diameter of 1, and then I've stacked spheres on top of it, of that base one, whose diameters in each case are declining by phi or 1.618. And when you do that, and then you build a pyramid around that, you end up with a slant angle of 76.345 degrees. And that, as Michael has just shown, seems to be the angle which is mentioned in this hieroglyph. So that's where all of this fascinating stuff starts to come together. Now the ratio, finish up, of the height to base length of that 76.345 degrees, for those of you who may want to try this on your own, is 2.058, but for our purposes, I think if you round to 2.06, you're probably okay. But precisely, or to 3 significant digits, 2.058 to 1 is the ratio of height to the base length of the pyramid.
It's terrific. So here, I think this is a depiction of what you're talking about, Charlie. If this bottom sphere is 1.618, the sphere above it would be 1 proportionately.
Yeah. Now, we're not seeing that. We're still back on the hieroglyph, Michael.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Let's, all right. New share. Here we go. All right. Apologies.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
All right. I know what I'm doing now. Sorry about that. All right.
There we go. Yeah.
So if this base sphere is 1.618, the sphere above it would be 1 proportionately. Is that correct?
Correct. And then 0.618 and so forth going up. That's right.
Terrific. So when I saw Charlie's geometries, I felt that they were superior to the more basic Nubian pyramid geometries of just height over length. And I decided that that's what I was going to go with. So what I ended up doing was taking PVC board, which I can actually show you here. 3mm PVC boards. This is just a piece of it. And I cut out a geometric net, which looks like this. And I then scored it along the lines and folded it up into a pyramid. So that's what I did. I then took a smaller pyramid and placed it inside so that there was a cavity, there was a gap between the two pyramids. And I decided to fill that with magnetite. For a bunch of reasons, I felt that magnetite was a good material to experiment with. And that's what I did. I then put a base on the pyramid, packed it full of magnetite, and put some gold in there. And I'll show you, hopefully I'll do the screen share right. I'll show you what happened. So this, I chucked the gold in there in a gold vial, just like that, with a cork stopper in it. So I had tiny little chips of 24 karat gold and cork in the top of it. So I suspended that in the pyramid for about 12 hours. And I didn't really know what was going to happen. I just wanted to be done with this and kind of know once and for all if it would work. I'd planned this for years and years and years, and I just hadn't come to the point of actually doing it and working out how to do it. So I just wanted to see what happened. I chucked it in there overnight. 12 hours later, I opened it up, and I found that the material was acting really, really strangely. So as soon as I saw it, I started recording what I was seeing, and I'll show you that right now. With a bit of luck, this will work.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you on the video there, Charlie?
Yes, we're seeing the video now. Yes.
Terrific. So what I had was as I was trying to open the vial that had a cork stopper in it, the cork broke apart. So I was using a stainless steel metal poker rod thing to try and fish out the cork and get the gold out to see if there was any white powder on the gold. And in doing that, I noticed that the gold in the cork was sticking to the metal rod in a really unusual way. So I pretty much thought I'd seen a ghost, and I grabbed a black surface, a stamp album, and I started recording because I was really blown away by what I saw. I was expecting to see white powder. I was not expecting to see whatever this is. So I'll play the video here. So these are the little cork chips, and you can see they're kind of jumping around when I place the stainless steel rod against them. Mm-hmm. And cork should not be acting magnetic. Cork is weakly diamagnetic, I think, so it's repelled by magnetic fields, and it should not be interacting with stainless steel in this way. So I was touching the cork and just kind of observing what was going on. The cork didn't stick to the stainless steel every time. Maybe 1 in every 5 touches it would actually stick. So it seemed really random what was going on, and the cork was just kind of jumping around in ways it shouldn't. So yeah, that's what you're seeing, is that footage when I found it.
Now, when you did this video, this again was coming out after only about 12 hours, is that right, of exposure inside the pyramid? Am I right, overnight?
Yeah, absolutely. So to get really precise, I also put a flat piece of gold in the pyramid placed on top of the vial. So it's a much bigger flat gold nugget, right? Mm-hmm. So I took the flat gold nugget out after 12 hours, and I took the vial out after about 16. Okay. And initially, I actually noticed on the flat gold nugget that there was a white residue in some of the creases and divots of the gold. So I would say about 16 hours for the vial and 12 hours for the larger nugget.
Right.
That's so important to mention. Yeah.
Now that white powder, you're assuming or believe is the Ormus that was being produced. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I'll get a picture up of the nugget in just a second, but it's a really kind of flat nugget. It's a glacial gold nugget, so it's kind of been flattened and molded by glacial movement. And one side had the powder on it and the other did not. So it was really distinct. And there is just no way that nugget had white residue on it before going in. I mean, that's the result I was hoping to get. And after 12 hours, I was really amazed that it was happening so quickly. I thought it might take a week for the white powder to start forming.
Right.
So yeah, I'll get an image of that up in just a second. Okay. Here you can see on the screen, you can see the gold chips sticking to the stainless steel. And to me, this is kind of significant because gold is a lot denser than cork. So it takes a lot more force for gold to be sticking to something than it does for cork to be sticking. Yeah. So it was really significant.
Now, in terms of the placement of the vial and the gold itself inside the pyramid, did you place it in any particular location, height-wise, within the pyramid?
Yeah, it was all really rough. What I did was I placed the vial on a cylinder of paper. So I rolled up some paper to create a thin cylinder, and I placed the vial at the top of it. From memory, it was about 6 centimeters, but it was super rough. In my mind, the pyramid wasn't finished yet, so it was just a throwaway experiment, if you will. But I think it was around 6 centimeters, which would have placed it pretty close to the middle of the pyramid.
Okay.
I think the pyramid was about 25 centimeters, 22 centimeters tall. I can confirm that, but yeah.
Okay, but
around that.
well, that tends to correspond with what we have found as sort of the sweet energy spot is about halfway up the pyramid. So whether you knew it or not, that certainly conforms to what we've found, and so that's probably something for further research, I'm sure, as time goes on, but probably a good spot to begin your experiments.
That information is actually really, really important, I feel. I tried placing the material that I'd kind of charged up in whatever way at the base of the pyramid a few days later, and I actually found that some of its charge had gone away. So I think that placement is crucially important. And originally I thought it was either 1/3 up or 2/3 up in the pyramid, but I definitely got the best results from that first time at around halfway up.
Okay.
So to me, that's really important, and it's great that you guys have bigger, larger scale models to kind of work that out with. To me, that's really important and significant.
Sure. Now, I know that you've only had a few, 3 or 4 weeks to work on this since then, but I know you've at least begun the process of trying some other alternative experimental sets of conditions. So kind of tell us what you've been finding and where you want to go next with this, and then hopefully we can wrap this up after that discussion with an explanation of how people who are interested in trying to do this themselves might be able to actually try these experiments on their own to verify what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure. So when I found this, I was pretty shocked. I'd thought about this for years and years and years. I'd planned it out. And to see it actually work really freaked me out, to be honest. So I kind of knew the repercussions from my own research of this, and I was really in shock for a few days. The first thing I wanted to do was get it out there, so I wasn't holding on to the knowledge of my own. I wanted it in the public domain. I wanted lots of people to know about it so that I wasn't at risk if anyone didn't want the information coming out. As crazy as that might sound, that was on my mind.
Not crazy at all.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. So, I mean, I posted this video with audio explaining what was going on, and once that was out, I was hugely relieved. And really, I can't thank you enough, Charlie, for sharing or mentioning that video on your channel. I think the video's got close to 1,400 views now, and just knowing that 1,400 people know that this is a possibility and that they can do it themselves gives me a hell of a lot of relief. So after that, I experimented with 2 other pyramids. I tried using graphite mixed with magnetite, which was the original material I used, and I made 1 other just straight magnetite pyramid. I was house sitting at the time. I really hate house sitting. I also had my grandfather die over this period. So my research was really intense and then pretty much non-existent. So I'm really only just picking it back up now. But what I've found was the original pyramid that I made, which is actually here. So you can have a visual representation. You can see this cavity is filled with magnetite. This original pyramid had about a 1 centimeter cavity, and it also had some activated charcoal in it. So I was going off, Wilhelm Reich's research into orgone energy, and I thought that layering carbon and metals or, semiconductors, whatever magnetite, whatever you want to classify magnetite as, could produce some kind of significant energetic effect. So in the tip here, there's actually a little bit of activated charcoal. And what I found was this original pyramid that was thinner and had less magnetite in it and more carbon actually works the best. I then made a pyramid that was pure magnetite and thicker. I think it's about 15 millimeters or 1.5 centimeters across the cavity as opposed to 1 centimeter. It's actually taller. I found that this pyramid could produce the strange effects in normal cork and also in some tree resins that I tried in it, but it wasn't as strong as the original pyramid. So what I'm kind of thinking now is that magnetite probably isn't the ideal material, and I'm kind of exploring other options. I'll show you the one other pyramid I made during that period. You can see it has just a small cavity right here. This is kind of based off the hieroglyph. So in the hieroglyph, you can see that there's a smaller pyramid inside a larger pyramid. And I thought that might have been a kind of negative imprint. So it could have been a solid pyramid with a smaller cavity at the base, and that maybe that's where they're placing the gold. I actually found that this pyramid reduced the strange effects from the cork and gold. So it was almost sucking the charge out of the material. So I no longer think that this is the correct design. But yeah, while I'm at it, the other possibility was that inside the bigger pyramid was a smaller pyramid.
Yes.
Material was placed above it. So that was the third option, if you will, I guess.
Right.
I messed around with this with magnetite. I probably didn't test it enough to really confirm what was going on there, but I'm not entirely convinced. Anyway, now I'm really moving on to other materials. One that I'm really interested in is beeswax. So I'm going to melt down beeswax and give that a go. Casting, the shape, the geometry of beeswax. And I'm also planning on mixing it with shungite just to see what happens there. Shungite's got a lot of really interesting properties. Charlie, you probably know more about it than me. I think it was your suggestion, actually, shungite. And that will be a really interesting one, in my opinion. So yeah. I'm moving away from the magnetite. I'm just going to experiment. I think originally these pyramids were made of granite. I think that these were carved. I think it took a whole lot of craftsmanship to make this stone. And I think that's literally what is meant by the philosopher's stone. I think could even tie into Freemasonry in its origins. That's really where I think this came from. It was carved stone.
Well, a couple of thoughts on what you've just said. One, the beeswax, I'm very interested in because of research that I've done into other Russian scientists. There was a scientist in Russia named, I believe, Viktor Grebennikov, who studied beehives and the shape of the hive and the ability of those hives to produce anti-gravity effects. Now, Grebennikov, in his autobiography, took some of this technology, which he didn't go into in this book, but he was able to develop a platform that he could literally stand on based on this technology, and he could fly with no external source of power in a traditional sense, any engines or motors or anything. So amazing. That's fascinating to begin with. And the other topic that you mentioned was, oh goodness, I forgot. What was the
shungite?
Oh yes. Well, the shungite itself, yes, is I've begun to look at research into shungite, and the primary chemical structure of shungite is what's called C60, which in at least over here in the States and maybe in Australia is now being touted as a major health benefit. So there's something clearly going on there that I can't wait to see how that research goes as well. So anyway, couple of interesting sidelights. But I think that this research is possibly something that I know I'm going to want to try to make one of these myself. I have a kilo of shungite powder, and I'm going to try to do this. I do remember now the other thing I was going to say. You showed that mold earlier. For those of you who might want to try to replicate this yourself, you can actually buy these molds in this exact geometry from phimolds.com. It's a company based in Eastern Europe, I think Bulgaria, and Michael's holding up one of those right now, and those are a real easy way to do this. But for those of you who might want to do this with the fiber board, you can buy that at a local craft store in the United States. That could be a place like a Michael's or a Home Depot, an Office Depot or a Staples office supply store. And what you'd want to do, as Michael was demonstrating, is you'd want to take that, develop a pyramid template which has a ratio of height to base length of 2.058 to 1, and use that to move around in 4 different directions, starting with one and then moving to the next and the next, like that, and then scoring in the along the edges like that. And you could use that as a template for making your own, short of going to phimolds. But the phimolds, I was real happy recently when they started manufacturing this Russian geometry mold based on my new geometry that I figured out. So they are readily available, and I will tell you, and Michael, you can probably attest to this, they are real prompt and very reasonably priced.
Yeah, I had great experience with them shipping to Australia and all the rest of it. It was terrific. Yeah, I have to be candid. Phimolds are amazing. Like, I think this is incredible. The flexibility and the material. I don't even think you need to use lubricant if you're casting with these.
Yeah.
But for making the cavity, like I have in these pyramids, I'm not sure how well they would actually work. So I was really happy because I thought, you can buy these online and, takes half the work out of it. But because of the thickness of it, if you tried attaching this to a base, you might have a bit of trouble. And getting the cavity, these edges would distort it a little bit. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but you have to do a little bit of fiddling. The base that the pyramid sits on that you then use to fill the cavity is really important. So if you can work it out, that's good. I highly recommend buying a mold from phimolds. But yeah, you might have to measure it out.
There's a way. We're making this up as we go, but if you'll pick that mold back up from phimolds, and if you were to turn it completely inside out and put it together that way, that's
I've been doing it wrong.
That's the way these molds are actually intended to be used. Is this?
Well, that would make a lot of sense.
Well, and so what you'd want to do is have this one as the interior one.
Oh, yeah.
On the outside, have it inverted like you did before, and then you're not going to have that issue that you were thinking about before. Now,
absolutely, you're 100% right, Charlie.
Yeah, I made that. The only reason
I feel very foolish.
I made the same mistake myself when I first got them, and I said,
"Yeah,
wait a minute, the base is bigger than it's supposed to be because I had it inside out." So
these are quite impressive now that I look at it the right way.
So
You can use these, absolutely.
We can try that out. Michael, I think this has been fascinating, and I hope the viewers enjoy this. What we're going to try to do, I'm learning these programs as we go, but Michael, if you would, once I learn how to actually make this into a podcast, what I'm going to suggest is that we try to schedule a meetup again where people can actually call in, comment, and do this kind of on a at least a live basis, so you can take questions. from the viewers in a couple of weeks. So what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, if people are interested in this, once the video is up, if you'd make some comments to see if people are interested in trying this themselves and having a chance to possibly discuss this in an open forum, give us some feedback once we've posted the video, and then we'll be happy to set this up, and I'll try to figure out in the interim actually how to use this technology to let any number of us be able to communicate at the same time and share the screen together. So I think this is going to be exciting stuff. Michael, I cannot thank you enough for being here today, particularly now that I understand the significance of the meaning behind the hieroglyph itself. I now am more firmly convinced than ever that this geometry and this technology was known to the Egyptians. And I'll just kind of stop and try to sum this up by saying that, Dr. Golod, when he designed this geometry, he said that he was using this geometry because it was the one that best benefited mankind and nature, and that he couldn't really comment as to the geometry of the Giza pyramid. I know that we all are familiar with the Giza pyramid. It's the biggest pyramid, at least up until recently, that had been discovered in the world, and its geometry is well known. But I think it's fascinating now to know that this pyramid is featured in a hieroglyph that seems to indicate some significant importance for mankind as well, and that this geometry has been so-called hidden in plain sight, even within the Egyptian hieroglyphs for all this time. So anyway, with that as summary, Michael, do you have any closing words for the viewers that you'd like to impart before we finish up here today?
Other than a huge thanks, really, I just want people to get involved. I want people to try it to prove that I'm not some quack out there trying to defraud people. I'm not. I'm just sharing what I've experienced, and I hope that this will benefit people and perhaps mankind. So, yeah, if you want to get involved, feel free to contact me, and I look forward to where this takes us.
And why don't you go over again how people can get in touch with you, Michael?
Yeah, sure. So I have a small YouTube channel. It's called Yi at LDT. So that's YI space at AT space LDT. You can also email me at yi@ldt@gmail.com. Apologies if I haven't got back to anyone. I've really appreciated the support so far. So, and yeah, that's probably the best way, through my YouTube channel and through my email.
Fantastic. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, viewers, contact Michael, post up some comments, and we're going to try to set up a follow-up podcast where we can all participate here in the near future. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.
Thank you.